Hey guys, it's Gem Warrior, and it is time for another week's YTPaganchallenge Challenge. This is the week of whatever week it is, and it is the challenge this week is what are your cultural influences? And culture in general has just been something that I've always been super fascinated by. I just love learning about history and the history of people, the history of my own cultural ancestry, and the history of just the world's cultures. And I like comparing cultures. I love comparative anthropology. I love sociology. I love theology. I just love to study people, I guess, and the way that they interact with each other, and the way they interact with the ether, with divinity. So when I was growing up, it was really ground into us to be really proud of our Cherokee ancestry that we had. I have some Native American ancestry that's extremely close to me, like not that far back, to have pure-blooded Native American people in my family. And my family is super proud of that. Really proud of that fact on my mother's side, that they have Cherokee ancestry so close to us. And like my grandmother, my mom's mother, was biracial. She was half Cherokee, so it's not that far removed. Well, anywho, so we were really taught to really to really honor that part of us, and because it was so close to us, being so close to my grandmother, she always taught us just little like wives' tale kind of traditions from the Cherokee. So that was just always a big part growing up of us. And like, we were taught that crows and ravens are such sacred animals, and which was completely opposite from what I had heard everywhere else in my life. I always heard that they were like harbingers of death and, like bad energy, and you should stay away from them. And that was like out in the world. But then when I came home, or we went to my mom's house, my grandmother, we called her Ma. It was Ma and Pa. So I'm Southern. So if I say Ma and Pa, I'm referring to my grandfather and grandmother, not my mother and father. So whenever we'd go to Ma's house, she would teach us and just tell us stuff about the Cherokee and stuff. And later on, a little bit about the Irish too, which was the other part of her ancestry, and her husband, my pa. And my mom really took that stuff to heart too. Like, she really drove in the Celtic stuff personally on her own. She was really big into it, like learning Gaelic words, cooking like Irish stuff. Of course, bluegrass. She loved still loves. Bluegrass, which is like, this sort of American fusion of traditional Irish music. If you listen to bluegrass and traditional Irish music, they're not that far removed from each other. You can tell that it was definitely kind of morphed into bluegrass. The area that I live in is huge with Scottish and Irish descendants. Like, most of us who live here are Scotch-Irish, so that plays a huge part in our town, especially if you go out into like the county, like in the countryside around our city. You can still see a lot of like that kind of custom being carried out still, and definitely in the food that we eat too. It's very much like a Southern Irish cuisine. So that was really big for me. And so when I got into paganism and found that it was so Celtic heavy, with the witchcraft and Wicca and stuff like that, and Witta, I was super excited. I was like, wow, this is an easy transition. Like, I don't a lot of things I had already heard and learned were there already. So that was pretty cool. So definitely Celtic and Cherokee, like Native American specifically, that's really all I can speak for. I'm not particularly well versed in what other Native American tribes may have practiced and or still practice. But those two cultures were definitely very inspirational to me in the very beginning when I was just a young little teenager getting into paganism. But then as I started to develop my own voice, because again, I was a teenager, you're coming into yourself, I moved on to to India. And I don't have an explanation as to why, really. I just really am drawn to them visually. I think India is beautiful. I think the people are beautiful, Indian people. Their languages are beautiful. They have so many gods, probably more gods than any other culture on the face of this planet. Which is, like, both beautiful and ridiculous and maddening. In terms of, like, reading up on them. But no, India is amazing. I love Bollywood, like, cinema. I love their music. Like, there's the song called Thea Thea, and in some dialects it's Chaya Chaya. There's actually a musical called Bombay Dreams, which has the song Chaya Chaya in it. But Thea Thea and Chaya Chaya are, like, amazing songs. Amazing. I've done a lot of channeling deity work through that. Spell work, oracle card readings. I love Chaya Chaya. It's an amazing song.
Paul did.
But
Jesus
what is that?
Lord, what would you have me to do? He recognized Jesus as Lord.
Oh, Jesus. What? Sorry, Jesus wanted to make an appearance in this, if you heard that on the television. That was weird. The TV just turned on by itself, I swear. And Jesus was on. That was strange. But, so I guess Jesus wants to say that he was a cultural influence on me as well. But anyway, India was huge for me in my formative years. I would have a lot of dreams about India as a teenager, where I would imagine myself as a woman, actually, in this dream. And I was kind of like a fortune teller. Like, I had a tent. It was dark blue, and I could still remember it. And I had these cards, these like tarot cards, but they weren't shaped like rectangles or square. They were crosses. Like, the shape of the card was cut out in a cross. But they were tarot. And I remember always using them and giving people readings, and I would pack up my tent and go somewhere else in India and through the jungles and deserts and give readings to people. I think it's really bizarre. I mean, but I remember that being just a huge reason for me to delve more into Indian culture, and try to figure out what that meant to me, what that dream meant, because I kept having that dream over and over. It was a recurring dream. And anywho, I started working with a lot of spirit guides that were Indian and stuff like that, and from there, kind of, I finally got into, like, the Greek and Roman stuff a little, and the Norse, but I didn't spend too much time on them, although now, in retrospect, I realize how much impact those two cultures have had on my path. But while I have never consciously really, truly venerated those cultures as a whole, they've kind of always been there, like, in the base of my spirituality. So that's interesting. But currently in my practice, the biggest cultural influences on me are definitely Africa, specifically West Africa, like the Yoruban culture, but definitely Africa, and yeah, really just Africa. That's mostly what I'm working with right now. But Africa and India and the Celts are definitely my top 3 influences in my practice ever, I would say. But I'm always open to learning from different cultures and new cultures and obscure cultures and gods from cultures that we don't normally work with and stuff like that. I think it's good to always be open to everything, to not have a sort of resistance to a culture because of maybe people that you knew from that culture or experiences you've had with that culture, etc., etc. Actually, Judaism, Kabbalah. I actually just got a book right here in the mail the other day. Kabbalah for Beginners. Because I wanted to learn more about Kabbalah, like the true Jewish Kabbalah. Not the witches' Kabbalah or the Catholic Kabbalah. I wanted to learn about where Kabbalah really came from and what it is, and also, by default, learn about Judaism and the Torah and stuff, because that's just a group of people and a culture that I've always felt really an affinity towards, but I've never looked into because, you know, I'm pagan, and I made a video recently actually about having like this resistance to Abrahamic faiths, but since I'm really trying to evolve out of that, I thought I'd look into this, and I've got to say that I'm really digging what I've read so far. I haven't read too far, but I am really, really liking it. This is just a necklace I'm using as a bookmark, but I'm really loving this. So I guess, in a way, the Hebrew culture, the Jewish culture, is starting to influence my path as well, but or we'll see how much it does. But no, I think it's always good to be open to any and every culture you can get your hands on. Anything that you're exposed to, people in your life of different cultures, and always listen to what they have to say, you know, and take everything they say with a grain of salt, of course, but take everything they say and try to look at the roots of where these thoughts and feelings and concepts and customs come from, you know, because you from that you can really dig into some really interesting places and areas. Spiritual growth and spiritual information doesn't always come from spiritual places, so yeah, be open to obtaining spiritual truth from anything, be it fiction or nonfiction or Greece or Australia or wherever. Yep, that's my little ditty for this week, you guys. Thanks for listening, and also thank you because I've recently reached 100 subscribers, and that's amazing. That's amazing. So that's a big milestone. So thank you so much, and goodbye.